In our 20th year, we haven't done a retrospective. It's time to hit pause on the headlong rush into the future, but we're not peddling easy answers. When truth is elusive, Janus faced, we can turn to artists. We've had a leather couch, we could have called on an analyst. Instead, we've called on a writer and a conjurer of words. Warren Ellis has found words for the unconscious of this culture, given voice to our times. To bring down the curtains on our 20th anniversary, I give you Warren Ellis.
I think I've got to, really, don't you? Story time. Is everyone sitting comfortably? It is the end of the day here at Future Everything. You have had fun. All that's over now. The doors have been locked. You have been off ranging in weird and wonderful worlds, but now we have all landed. You're emerging from your capsule onto a blasted, ashen terrain. You with your big phone and your SpaceX mission patch and your wrist-launched drone mounted on top of your smartwatch and your health goth exercise leotard. The sky is like an iron lid over the world. You are being approached by the worst possible thing you could find at a setting like this. A middle-aged white man with a beard gone wild from rustic living. In one hand, he holds a rusted old can that he has chewed open with his 8 remaining teeth. It is half filled with brackish, contaminated water. A wormy morsel of bread made from rotting acorns floats in it like a broken raft. In his other hand is a spear made from duct tape, a smashed Nokia phone from 1998, and a selfie stick. Welcome to the future. Some bleak circus, uncovered, carefully chosen, vivid night. It is packed with posterity, silent and expectant. Posterity is silent like the dead. These are the opening lines from Enemy of the Stars, a play written by one Wyndham Lewis. It is supposedly unperformable and seems in some ways to prefigure Samuel Beckett's Waiting for Godot, whose Vladimir and Estragon could even be ragged clowns on the run from Lewis's Bleak Circus, as much as they always appear to me to just be Laurel and Hardy in hell. It's the crucible of modernism, which we can very loosely describe as the process of making only those things that fit and speak of our ever more complex times, creating new things for a new world. Postmodernism, which has probably lasted longer than modernism, is the process of interrogating the aesthetic discourse, disrupting the narrative. Modernism says that things can be right. Postmodernism says that nothing can be right. So if you ever wonder why nothing new ever seems to happen anymore, find a postmodernist and beat the shit out of them. Wyndham Lewis was a vorticist, which is not a level of wizardry. Vorticism was kind of our local response to futurism, by which I mean the art movement founded by Filippo Marinetti. The two movements are strongly connected by their interest in depicting dynamic movement, and they were also both run by fascist apologists, because you can't have everything. Lewis later engaged in a long campaign of detoxification, which is why he's got one of those blue plaques in Kensington now. Vorticism was all about sweeping away everything that did not describe the industrialized world of their times, all the conventional aesthetics and the linear narratives. But it's separated from futurism, which dodgy old Ezra Pound described as a kind of accelerated impressionism, by attempting to depict motion within the picture. Motion blurs, strobing images, the flow within the frame. Enemy of the Stars is set in what Lewis called the 30th centuries, and the audience itself was intended to comprise the entire remains of humanity, referred to as posterity. Posterity is silent. Damn, I'm good. A stage direction reads, "The red walls of the universe now shut posterity in." And I did mention that you're locked in here with me. Some bleak circus. You can almost imagine that being staged in the Pripyat amusement park in what is officially termed the Chernobyl nuclear power plant zone of alienation. The novel Station 11 by Emily and John Mandel features a group of travelling players in a post-apocalypse world staging Shakespeare in outposts on a ruined planet, silent like the dead. Terence McKenna, who I quote often because he was an entertaining bullshit artist who lived in the space between the future and the archaic, talked once of someone he took DMT with who didn't get the full hit. The full hit should have been the wacky Technicolor funfair described in some circles as the businessman's lunch, because we're all about keeping things bleak. However, she didn't get the full hit, and so she landed in what she described as the world's saddest fairground. The circus was shut. All the rides were still, silent. A cold wind blew through the site. Dead zone, a zone of alienation. Some metaphors never go away. The circus ring is radioactive, the acrobats are eating each other, and the clown car exploded because it's electric and the battery caught fire. Wyndham Lewis recorded a conversation with Marinetti in his autobiography, which was surprisingly not called Old Racist. Even though he can't stop himself from calling Marinetti a wop who can't grasp that, quote, "We've had machines here in England for donkey's years, they're no novelty to us." Marinetti, who at this point appears to have entirely given up on recruiting the bastard for futurism, just yells at him, "You have never understood your machines. You have never known the ivresse of travelling at 1 kilometre a minute. Have you ever travelled 1 kilometre a minute?" Lewis responds, "Never. I loathe anything that goes too quickly. If it goes too quickly, it is not there." Move fast and break things versus calm technology. The vorticist is at his maximum point of energy when stillest, Lewis said. There's a middle way, of course. Think of the peace evoked by Kraftwerk. when they consider travel in Autobahn, the contentment of endless motion. They were actually big bicycle riders, which is why they also did Tour de France and stage gigs in velodromes. They'd be out on the Autobahn on push bikes, bringing calm technology and a riverine flow to the roads. Marinetti, funnily enough, became a futurist after running his speeding car into a ditch to avoid running over two cyclists. He came out of the hole with a grudge. He loved powered machines now. To hell with wind, water, muscle, and bastards on bicycles. He wanted it all crushed by the wheels of industry. The rolling drum beat, developed by Klaus Dinger of Hanoi for pieces like Hallo Gallo and Für immer, was called by others motoric for its evocation of cruising in a car on some endless highway. But Klaus Dinger himself just called the beat the endless straight, and his working partner, Michael Rother, always associated the beat with rivers, flowing and yet also still, in its frame. Neu and Kraftwerk and the other bands and musicians in that movement were engaged in creating an alternate world, a history where fascism, Nazism, their aftermath, never happened to the German people and its culture. They were trying to imagine a new world and its future music. We're wandering around other people's futures, abandoned fairgrounds, rotting cemeteries. Vorticism was smashed by one immovable object in their swirling, non-linear modern dream, World War I. Some were killed, some went insane. Marinetti, having turned to fascism as a way to bring on the future, attached himself to Mussolini and attempted to make futurism the official art of the Catholic Church. He died in 1944 while writing a series of poems in praise of an Italian commando frogman unit that had sunk 30-odd ships during World War II, presumably because there wasn't an anti-bicycle commando operation for him to wax lyrical about. All these dead circuses, the radioactive fairgrounds in our wake, the New York World's Fairs that were left to rot until the money was found to polish them up into memorials for dead futures. Is that what we do? We pitch our tents and we do our little clown shows, and then we take off up the road to the next town ahead, leaving our science fictional debris on the blasted dirt to poison the minds of future generations, like the alien litter in Stalker and Roadside Picnic. Flying cars rusting out like Saturn V rockets propped up as roadkill talismans at Kennedy, leaking toxins into the soil. Jetpacks oozing fuel from cracks in their tanks and poisoning the grass. 3-ring moon bases crumbling in the solar wind. Bird shit on the time machines. Big fat rats scavenging broken packs of food capsules, best before date of 1971. A Westinghouse robot smoking companion, vintage of 1931, slumped up against a tree, yellow tin fingers still twitching for a cigarette. Vines growing through a busted cyberspace deck. The shreds of inflatable furniture designed for the space hospitals of 1955. Lizards perched atop a weather control cannon. atomic batteries mouldering inside the grips of laser pistols abandoned in the weeds. We throw a pretty fine circus. We've gotten pretty good at it. We roll along the endless straight at a goodly clip onto the next site of the future, moving fast and breaking things. And the one thing we'll never admit is that we don't have a map. All we've got is the endless road, and we fling ourselves along it as quickly as we can, leaving all these dead circuses behind us so fast because we don't want you to notice them. Don't look at them, look at us. Don't look ahead of us because we overshot the mark so often that we just don't have the maps for the territory we're in. Maybe we just don't get the full hit of the future, right? There's something missing. So we leave this trail of crap in our wake, in the wake of our forecasts and conferences. That's why we're wandering around in this metaphor I'm massively overextending. Moving at 1 kilometre a minute. If it goes too quickly, it's not there. We don't want memory. What Mars colony? We never promised you that. What transatlantic tunnel? We're not interested in democracy because the future is a product and you only get to vote with your money now. And apparently they keep all that in Ireland now. Here's your acorn bread and bleak circuses. We promised you 1,000 songs on a little slab in your pocket, but you mostly only get to rent them these days. And you probably rent the slab too. And the people who made the slab get to decide what you rent. And not only did nobody predict that little slab that changed the world, but also no one predicted that it might randomly force you to listen to U2 at any given moment. Pulling themselves out of a ditch, Wyndham Lewis and Filippo Marinetti, the Vladimir and Estragon of futurism, determined to summon and shape a new future, but neither of them considering for a second democracy as an engine for tomorrow, or for that matter, communism. Democracy somehow hasn't sounded like the future for a long time. If you live in Britain, that's probably understandable, because here the democratic machine is represented by 3 middle-aged men who look eerily alike in their hairlines and soft jawlines, often distinguishable only by the colours of their ties. There are no good futures. There's nothing to head towards but more garish, unsustainable carnival acts. The atemporal space at the end of postmodernism. Nothing left to do, nothing happening, everything stays the same. We feel it. We feel it politically, culturally, socially, and at this point, technologically. We've spent the 21st century muttering, "Ever feel like you've been cheated?" and doing it ironically, even in a bad Johnny Rotten voice. Even philosophy has abandoned us at this point. Off in a fantastically bleak enterprise generally referred to as speculative realism. The most optimistic and forward-thinking strains of this movement tell us that we live in a cold and uncaring cosmos where life means nothing, and we are nothing but a temporary infection smeared across an unremarkable rock hurtling through the blackness. That's the good news. Furthermore, we have no more claim to existence or dreams than the rock itself. And the rock, generally, is of more use to the universe than we are. It is the philosophy of understanding the presence of things rather than people. in some doomy Lovecraftian mode of looming Leviathan forces we cannot comprehend. And now the early practitioners are engaged in, and I quote, ferreting out the specific psychic reality of a rock. To me, it always has the sense of being on the verge of a connection with the industrial economy, where humans are nothing but the reproductive organs of the massive machines that both loom over us and haunt us. For now, they extend into the unseen digital planes of electromagnetic fields. It can almost tip over into a philosophical underpinning for accelerationism, the notion that capitalism should be unchained and allowed to run riot until it destroys itself. Let the wheels of industry crush everything until there's nothing left to crush but themselves. You can array any number of arguments against what is, as Benjamin Noyes said, a capitalism fetish. But the main one is still that it really doesn't work like that, not until we're all dead. And frankly, probably not even then. Speculative realism says that our lives and deaths don't matter anyway. It's the systems of the world and the orreries of the universe that are the story. Happy books, these are. With happy names, Eugene Thacker's In the Dust of This Planet, a title so snappy that it immediately got appropriated and stuck on a clothing line. Extinction aesthetic. So, there's the latest news from philosophy. The saviours of the human condition. Nothing actually matters, and building a future is pointless because Matthew McConaughey says that time is a flat circle, the middle of the three-ring circus that will soon be subsumed in the dust of this planet. Posterity is silent. We're at the end of 20 years of FutureEverything, and maybe 120 years of futurism as its own industry. And here we stand in the dark, in the rubble of busted ideas and broken promises and 10,000 conference lanyards. No future left. I think that's probably got to stop, don't you? Ban prediction. Prediction causes litter. Prediction causes enough embarrassment that you have to leave town and set up shop again 2 towns up the road. Prediction is the best circus act of all, but it is just an act. It's a carny turn. Stop doing it, or I will make you wear clown shoes while you do it. Let's look at that term, speculative realism, again. Probably the best SF short story ever written is Samuel R. Delaney's I and Gomorrah, which is, yes, a cheery title again. I don't think it's hard to find. It's about null-gendered astronauts and the way they live, including feeding off a fetishist fan base. Its speculation comes not from the probable futures inherent in science, but from a dark-minded view of human practicality and predation as we move into the future. As prediction, Delaney's surgically desexualized astronauts weren't a lot of use for a long time. To a certain mindset, it's useless as extrapolation because why would we neuter astronauts? It came from discussions about gender in the astronaut corps. Why would a sexual fringe fetishize them? Because Rule 34 hadn't been invented yet. The act of speculation comes from considering the ways in which we use people. and what happens when there's no real support system for any kind of gender reassignment, and what happens when surfacing gender issues impact an unprepared social fabric, and operating science fiction as a tool with which to reveal that in an affecting way. It's okay to be a science fiction writer. We were never in the business of prediction. If some of our ideas happen to come true, that's not really a badge of victory or validation for us. Also, it's usually only the really scary ones that come true, which gets a little bit unsettling for some of us. And you can stop sending me pictures of two-headed cats now. I've seen them all. What appeared as prediction was only ever a side effect of doing the science fictional work of speculation and extrapolation. A side effect like, I don't know, drowsiness, inability to operate heavy machinery, hearing voices in your head and feeling the urge to start a religion. It's okay to be a science fiction writer here, in this room, because this is where science fiction lives now, or at least its more conscious and modern form. The name for which people worked madly for years to make popular, speculative fiction. There might be a circle in the middle of that for all of us to stand in, speculative realist fiction. If memory is dismissed or declaimed as a serious security risk, and democracy is forgotten and ignored, and ownership is toxic or lost, and the wonderful is in short supply, and the weird is everywhere and it's worrying the crap out of us, then it's time to close 20 years of FutureEverything by starting all over again. FutureEverything is the thing. The future isn't seeing the circus approach town from up the road, coming straight towards you. It's everything. It's standing on headlands and seeing an entire weather system, the breadth of the whole horizon, swirling around and inching towards us, cirrus by thunderhead by rainstorm. Long-range weather forecasts are all we've got, and we produce those by studying the pressure systems acting on the atmosphere. All of them, not just one. We are long past that siloed future where we could talk about, I don't know, the future of the space plane, because they still make those, it turns out. You can't talk about it without talking about the pressure systems around us, the pressure systems that surround it. Talking about the future of the space plane without talking about the politics, the economics, the environment surrounding it, you might as well just be fucking juggling. It's a meaningless act. Talking about the future of music, strictly in terms of compression rates and headphones, is wasted breath. And yet I see this all the time. And it's so rare that the people talking about the future of space travel talk to the people talking about the future of music. And so few of them seem to talk to the people involved in political futures, except as lobbyists. We're all afraid to be wrong because we've done it so much under the auspices of prediction that now we specialize in tiny fields that we can get our arms around. There are people out there so heavily specialized in wearable technology that they call shirts with network devices built into them wearable shirts. They are so deep into their own silo of futurism that they have forgotten how shirts work. It's okay for new futures to be complex. It's okay for it to be complicated. They should be. They used to be. This isn't 20th century science fiction that we're writing here. Our fictions to describe possible weather conditions are both speculative and realistic. The future is a weather front with a dozen systems working on it. And no weather forecaster in their right mind is going to tell you they can predict exactly where lightning will strike. That's not realistic. Spotting the possible direction of the storm is. That's what we need to be in the business of doing. And doing it without turning into American television weather news, which is an industry that needs to sell advertising and therefore tries to obtain the maximum number of eyeballs by turning a bit of rain into Storm Watch, with its own logo and choppers in the air, or naming some snow and enacting 24-hour coverage of the storm to end all storms, which it never is. Bloody Wolf Blitzer intoning that a weather bomb is going to detonate across America because the planet hates humans and time is a flat circle. These are circus acts. That is no longer our business. We need to spot them and call them out. It's more than asking for communication and cross-contamination between fields, though it's certainly that too. Silos for field-specific or even object-specific research and extrapolation can be very large and very nice. And I bet you Elon Musk has one that's all tricked out like a James Bond villain's lair, but it's still a bloody silo. It's not just demanding a bigger picture. A bigger picture in 2015 means more than a 6-inch phone. We've been talking for 20 years about the internet revolution and the digital revolution of gathering more information than we ever thought possible, and the communications revolution, and yet apparently we remain so isolated from each other in our thinking that some billionaire fetus in San Francisco can say the words wearable shirt and not be immediately murdered for the good of the gene pool. The bigger picture is in gathering up all our vaunted information streams and combining them into a 360 view of whatever weather we're tracking. And it's not just stopping ourselves from industrializing the future. That leads us to extrapolate without personal consequences. Selling the future makes whatever problems are inherent in that future the problems that belong to whatever entity paid for it. It's not even kicking a can down the road. It's kicking a time bomb up into the next town. Time and again, I've seen people gather fantastic information about social technologies and utilities and urban patterning that could be put into any number of uses in combination with other research fields, and those things just get sold or even given to a corporate or government authority. And not only is the work never seen again, but the people who invented the wonderful ways to do this don't even know what happened to it. They shrug. It's not their problem anymore. It's all these things. It's everything. The comeback from putting on all these circuses about how great we are in the face of an uncaring universe and all the things we can do one day is that we actually have to start being great, and we have to start being realistic about what we can do one day. We are as gods on our little rock in the vast bleak cosmos, and it's way past time we started getting good at that instead of just posing on Olympus and photoshopping our zits out. The future is more than an Instagram filter. The themes of this festival have been memory, democracy and ownership, and the weird and wonderful, all assembled under the simple sentence, what now? What now? Who gets to own the future? Do we like living in memory holes? Do we even understand what democracy is for anymore? Do we love the weird and wonderful? I think we do. I think we're entertained to death by the weird and wonderful. We've just forgotten that the future is supposed to be weird and wonderful. We're supposed to build that. Which means we have to stop moving fast and breaking things. And we have to stop being mesmerized by clown cars. Walk away from me. Walk away from the black circles on the grass where the saddest, bleakest circus in the world once stood. Go to the river. Watch how the wind moves the surface of the water and how the water flows endlessly on. A motion towards the future that contains an entire ecosystem within it, not just the bits you're personally interested in. Behind you is the sea and the weather, the pressure systems and the jet streams that we stand ready to see and measure and project and ultimately, crucially, talk about with each other. We're all there right now. Terence McKenna, between all his put-ons and fantasies, said one thing that continues to ring true. Find the others. Find the people in the same place as you who want to build the same things. Ask them what they're interested in. Ask them what they're making. Ask them if you can help. Put it together. Because you all are posterity, and you're all locked in here together, and you will be judged by yourselves. I am just an aging white man with 8 teeth and a tin can with rusty water in it. It's too late for me. All I could do was gather you up into a room and then lock it. It's not too late for you. It's not too late for the future. Start talking. Start building it. Make it calmly and make it complex and make it inclusive. Make it real. Make it human. Make it weird and wonderful. No more circuses. Make future everything. You can unlock the doors now. Thank you for your time.
Well, 20 years later, here I stand in the rubble of ideas, in a wearable shirt. Couldn't resist. We came together to ask, what now for our digital culture? What now for the foundational values and narratives that have put the wind in our sails? FutureEverything began in an age of optimism, of creativity, when you could create your own reality online. Today, walled gardens have fragmented the openness. State-sponsored surveillance exceeds the imagination of conceptual art. Huge centripetal forces draw all value into an ever-diminishing center driven around California in a private bus. The social contract's been rewritten by invisible corporate hands. There's been a fundamental shift in ownership, in memory, in identity, maybe in the weird and wonderful, in democracy too, in other things, privacy. It's fundamentally different what we will accept. As has been said in the last few days, we are constructing worlds on rules that are not clear or that are shifting. Control resides with a few companies who can turn off access at a whim. This isn't about working out a headline to a 20th anniversary. This is urgent. There's a huge democratic deficit, but there's also a huge opportunity. This morning, we heard about huge news for Manchester. This city's on the cusp of change. Devolution is happening. We've had history made. One of the most significant announcements of recent decades was made during this conference in that room there. 6 billion of budget devolved to Manchester. This is an opportunity. Who's going to grasp that opportunity if not us? Sir Richard Leese, one of the architects of that, stood on this stage and said we need imagination and ideas. Gabriela came from Mexico City and called for fascination and imagination to become part of the political landscape. Sometimes the narrative seems a little simplistic, as if it's a move from transcendent openness to encryption. The Janus face has long been there. I remember I was talking about an old friend, Ben Russell, earlier today. And I remember long conversations about in what we used to call locative media. And I had some friends who were talking about mobile surveillance and some friends who just wanted to build cool stuff. It's always been Janus-faced. So is this an end of innocence? Maybe. I think we're learning to live with the Janus face. Maybe this is something like a new civics of the internet. Maybe it's some old stuff that we need, what they call the art of the possible, also known as politics. It's messy, it's real, it's grown up. We've had a lot of insight into that world. Network citizenship, gaming our data double, swapping cookies, Hertzian tribes in air-gapped networks. There needs to be permission, consent, first-party as well as third-party access, data as philanthropy, not manipulation or exploitation. We need to reclaim this space, but it's not a level landscape. Ideas won't change it. We need to make new worlds. Bring a shovel. We do, though, need to open new discourse when discourse gets stale. We were proud to host Haunted Machines. Haunted Machines is introducing new discourse. As was said, we don't want to build a future where there is no magic. Over the last 2 days, we've been outside and ridden the internet of bikes. We've called for an internet of the imagination. Let's keep it weird and wonderful, people. Thank you.